What if the nursing home isn't the problem, but the symptom of years of slowly giving up your place in your own life? Because when your children start hinting at it, it almost never happens all at once. First, it's a concern, then it's a convenience, and in the end it becomes a decision disguised as affection, where you're the one who just signs off. And if today you're hearing that phrase "for your own good," you'd better wake up. Not to fight with your children, but to stop being the easy old man to move around, the one who adapts to whatever others decide, the one who resigns himself because he's already lived his life. You're still alive. And while you're alive, one thing belongs to you: your authority. Stay with me, Gabriel here. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. Today we're going to walk through 7 concrete actions to take before you accept anyone locking you into a smaller life, 7 moves to recover authority, autonomy and strength, and to leave a clear plan that will be carried out under your rules. If you stay until the end, you'll walk away with a mental and practical structure so the future doesn't fall on you like a sentence, but like a choice you control. Let's begin. 1. Reclaim authority in your own home. Before talking about money, health or paperwork, there is something even more basic. If in your own house you're treated like a guest who gets in the way, any conversation about your future will come out crooked. Because the nursing home doesn't begin with a suitcase. It begins when you get used to asking permission just to exist. Look at how that authority is lost. Not with a shout, but with small surrenders. You let others decide your schedule. You stay quiet when something bothers you, so you won't create tension. You adapt to everyone else's routine as if you were the last one on the list. And then you're surprised when they see you as someone easy to move around. Family can love you and still push you toward what's convenient for them. Affection doesn't always come with respect, and that needs to be said without drama, but with firmness. Authority isn't about giving orders. It's about your presence carrying weight. It's about your words not being decoration. And that's recovered with something very simple that many people abandoned years ago. Start speaking like an adult who respects himself, without justifying yourself, without apologizing for making others uncomfortable, without that tone of, if it's not too much trouble. Because yes, even at this age, there are people who act as if old age came with a built-in manual for submission. What a coincidence. Start with your space. I'm not just talking about a room, I'm talking about your territory, your belongings, your decisions, your routines. If someone walks in and reorganizes your life like it's a closet, that's a warning sign. And you don't need to argue like a teenager to set boundaries. You need consistency. You need to calmly repeat what you've decided and stand by it even when others call it stubbornness. Many times they call it stubbornness when what really bothers them is that you no longer give in. In the middle of all this appears an uncomfortable question many people struggle to accept. When was the last time you said no and held your ground without endless explanations? When was the last time you asked for something with the same clarity with which you've always given? Because if you don't take responsibility for your place, someone else will occupy it, and later they'll tell you it was for your own good. This is where an idea from Epictetus fits perfectly, repeated with the calm of someone who knew what real lack of freedom looked like. He was a freed slave, and that's why his teaching had teeth. He said, "It's not events themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we form about them." And in a household, the same thing happens. It's not only what your son says or what your daughter-in-law suggests. It's the judgment you accept when you convince yourself that you no longer have the right to decide. The moment you buy into that idea, you become easy to push. Reclaiming authority also means reclaiming your voice without becoming unbearable. There's a huge difference between imposing and stating your position. Imposing is shouting. Stating your position is calmly saying what will happen. This is what I need. I'm not accepting this. This is something I will decide. At first, they'll look at you strangely because you were trained to give in. And when you stop giving in, others feel like you changed the rules. You didn't change them, you simply stopped giving yourself away. And listen to this carefully. Your goal isn't to win arguments at the dinner table. Your goal is to change the dynamic. Dynamics change with habits, not speeches. If you begin occupying your space, setting your own pace, choosing your battles, and holding your decisions without asking permission, little by little your home starts to feel your presence again, the presence of a complete adult. And when the topic of the nursing home comes up, It will no longer be an order disguised as concern. It will be a conversation where you actually have a voice because first you recovered what seemed lost. 2. Secure financial autonomy before depending on anyone. Because let's be honest, lack of money makes anyone vulnerable, but in old age that vulnerability becomes a chain. When you don't control your accounts, your expenses, or your income, you start negotiating dignity in exchange for peace of mind. And that peace of mind ends up being very expensive. Many older people give up control with good intentions, so their children can help, so they don't complicate things, so they can avoid mistakes. And suddenly you realize you no longer know what comes in, what goes out, what gets paid, what gets signed, what gets decided. Your life becomes a folder that someone else manages, and then they tell you not to get involved because it stresses you out. Of course, how convenient. An adult who's had the wheel taken away and is told to be grateful for the ride. Financial autonomy isn't about being rich. It's about having margin. It's about knowing that if someone gets upset with you tomorrow, you're not completely at the mercy of their mood. It's knowing you can pay for your basic needs without begging for permission. And if today you already depend on others in some way, you can still recover ground with concrete actions. Not magical ones, concrete ones. Start with the basics, even if it feels uncomfortable. Your accounts should be visible to you. You should know your passwords. Your payments should be understandable to you. If someone is helping you, great, but helping doesn't mean replacing you. There's a huge difference between assisting and controlling, and here comes a question that sometimes hurts. Are you delegating out of real necessity, or out of fear of facing numbers and decisions that make you anxious? Then comes the issue of spending. It's not fun, but it's freeing. Knowing exactly what you need each month to live gives you clarity. I'm not talking about living like a monk or cutting out every joy. I'm talking about making sure your money stops being a mystery. When a child knows you don't understand your own finances, they have power, even if they're a good child. The power exists anyway, and power without limits eventually gets used. If you have income, even if it's modest, protect it. If you receive a pension, make sure it goes into an account you can access directly. If you have savings, keep them in your name with clear rules. If there's property involved, don't let it become a tool for emotional blackmail, because I've seen it 1,000 times. First, they help you with affection, then they advise you firmly, and in the end, they tell you that you can't have an opinion because they're the ones paying. And there you are, swallowing your words because you're afraid of losing your roof. One uncomfortable part of financial autonomy is accepting that even family can confuse love with entitlement. Not always with bad intentions, sometimes it's simple convenience. If you pay your own way, you decide more. If you depend on others, you adapt more. And when you adapt too much, you slowly disappear. Not out of cruelty, but out of habit. Habit is dangerous because it feels normal. You also need a small margin for emergencies. Not to live in paranoia, but to avoid living in panic. A cushion allows you to say no when something doesn't suit you. It allows you to choose a service, a form of help, an alternative. It allows you to breathe. And breathing freely is another form of authority, even if nobody applauds it. In the end, this isn't about distrusting your children. It's about not putting yourself in a position where trust becomes mandatory. Real trust exists when you could support yourself, but you choose to share. That's dignity, that's autonomy. And when we get to what comes next, you'll understand why the body and money are more alike than you think. Because both are infrastructure. When they deteriorate, everything else becomes negotiation. 3. Strengthen your body so you don't become a burden. Because there's a reality many people avoid looking at directly. The decision about a nursing home is almost always justified with one word: care. And yes, care matters, but when your body becomes fragile, when it's hard to stand up, when everything exhausts you, the world begins to speak for you. It begins deciding for you, and the conversation shifts from "what do you want" to "what can we do with you?" Strengthening your body isn't a gym vanity. It's sovereignty. It's being able to go to the bathroom without depending on someone. It's climbing a step without fear. It's sleeping better. It's having the energy to say no without your heart trembling. Because when you're weak, even the simplest conversation feels like a fight you don't have the strength to sustain. And that's when people can convince you of anything, just so you'll have some peace. And be careful with the favorite excuse that appears here. What's the point now, at my age? That's for young people. Let me ask you something, without softening it too much. Do you really want your future to depend on whether someone feels like helping you that day? Do you really want your body to become a card others can play against you whenever it suits them? Start small, but start seriously. Walk every day, even if it's a short distance, but with intention. Sit down and stand up repeatedly as an exercise, as a practice in independence. Lift something light and strengthen your shoulders and arms so your body stops feeling like glass. Stretch so pain doesn't become the owner of your mood. Eat with more respect. Not perfection, respect. Sleep as if it were a duty, not an accident. And this is where Seneca fits in, a man who didn't deal in soft speeches. He reminded us that it's not that we have little time, it's that we waste a lot of it. Aging is not losing by obligation, it's abandoning by habit. If you abandon your body, don't be surprised when others treat your life like a fragile package. But if you take care of it, even with basic discipline, you send a clear message. I'm still in charge. I still can. The irony is this. Many people worry about not bothering their children, but they don't worry about the root of the burden, because helping once in a while doesn't weigh on anyone. What weighs is permanent dependence that could have been delayed, reduced, or managed better. And although you can't control everything, you can control far more than you've been led to believe. Strengthening your body is your quietest insurance policy. No one applauds you for being able to stand up on your own until the day you can't, and suddenly everyone has an opinion. So don't wait until you're on the edge. Build your strength now, and you remove from any future conversation the most common excuse for pushing you somewhere you never wanted to be. 4. Build a routine that keeps you functional and active, because old age without structure becomes easy ground for other people to manage your life. When your days are chaos, when you sleep at random hours, when you eat poorly, when you have nothing of your own to hold you up, you end up living at the mercy of whatever comes up or whatever other people decide. And that isn't rest, that's drift. Routine is not a prison. It's an anchor. It's what keeps you steady when your mood goes up and down. And above all, it's daily proof that you are still a person with direction. If your life looks like an empty room, anyone can walk in and arrange it however they like. If your life has structure, people understand there are boundaries without you having to keep repeating them. Start with something that sounds simple, but changes everything. Wake up at the same time every day, even if you don't have anywhere to go, because the body needs rhythm, and so does the mind. Then a block of movement, even if it's short, a little cleaning or one specific task, because outer order lowers inner noise. A moment for decent food, a space for reading or learning something, even if it's minimal, and human contact, even if it isn't with family. If you don't expose yourself to life, life starts to shrink around you. In the middle of all this, that voice saying, "I don't feel like it," is going to come for you. And that is where the future gets decided. Are you going to obey the whim of the day, or are you going to hold on to a discipline that protects you? Because discipline is the adult way of taking care of yourself. No one becomes autonomous by accident. Autonomy is built day after day through small decisions that seem boring until they save you. There's another trap here. Routine is not just about doing things. It's about doing what keeps you useful and connected. Sometimes being useful means cooking yourself something healthy. Sometimes it means fixing a drawer. Sometimes it means going out for a walk and greeting the world. Sometimes it means taking care of a plant or writing 2 lines about how you feel. Not for the sake of romance, but so you don't lose yourself in silence. Long silence is not always peace. Many times it is abandonment disguised as calm. And no, you don't need to fill your schedule to prove anything. You need consistency. You need your body and mind to know there is a path. Because when you have a routine, the conversation with your children changes. You are no longer the one who just sits there all day doing nothing. You are someone who manages his own life, who moves, who takes care of himself, who has a life of his own. And let me tell you clearly, that greatly reduces the temptation to pack you off to some place where they can keep an eye on you. Routine also gives you a quiet advantage. It makes you predictable to yourself. And when you become predictably good in that way, anxiety goes down, irritability goes down, drama goes down. The house feels more stable, and a stable adult is hard to manipulate, hard to blame, hard to push around. So build your day the way someone builds a wall. Not against your children, but against the loss of control. Because when the time comes to talk about your future, you will not be speaking from exhaustion or improvisation. You will be speaking from a life that already works, and a life that works is not surrendered so easily. 5. Create a support network beyond your children. Because when your world shrinks down to them, you become a hostage without even realizing it. Not out of cruelty, sometimes just out of habit. If your only phone calls, your only plans, and your only favors all go through your children, they become your only bridge to life. And any bridge, when it is the only one, is also a point of control. A support network is not about replacing family. It is about balancing the map. It is about having someone to call if one day you feel unwell, if you need someone to go with you somewhere, if you have paperwork to handle, if the power goes out and that feeling hits you that everything is crashing down. Because when you have no one else, it becomes far too easy for the conversation to turn into this. Then maybe it would be better for you to go somewhere they can take care of you. And you, tired and out of options, end up saying yes. Start with what is most accessible. Neighbors you can build real trust with, not just exchange greetings. An old friend you stopped calling out of pride. Groups in your community, reading groups, walking groups, church if that's your thing, a senior center if there is one where you live. And if there isn't, then you create the habit of going out, even if it is just to a cafe at the same time every day to see human faces, to remain part of the world. Independence is social too. Some people can endure physical pain but collapse from loneliness. And loneliness is dangerous because it makes you more willing to settle. It makes you accept scraps just so you do not feel abandoned. And that is where that poisonous phrase shows up, the one so many repeat as if it were a virtue. I don't want to be a burden. Let's be clear, being a burden is demanding without respect. Asking for support in a healthy way is part of being human. You have carried other people all your life. Now it is your turn to allow yourself support without humiliating yourself. In the middle of this point, there is a question you should face. If tomorrow your son can't help because of work, because of distance, or because of his own life, what do you do? Do you just sit and wait as if your existence depended on his availability? Because that is not love. That is dependence dressed up as family. Building a network also means building reciprocity. It is not about receiving all the time. It is about giving something too. Advice, companionship, conversation, a small favor. When you continue contributing, your self-respect stays standing. And when your self-respect is standing, you do not accept being treated like a piece of furniture that needs to be moved. And let me tell you something with a touch of irony, but it's real. There are families who say, "We're going to take you somewhere people can keep you company," while you have gone years without real companionship. Not because they do not love you, but because they got used to you simply being there. That is why you need to widen your circle, not to punish anyone. So your life does not become a hallway with only one door. 6. Set clear boundaries against emotional manipulation from family. Because when they can no longer convince you with arguments, many people try guilt. And guilt, if you buy into it, bends you faster than age ever could. They tell you, "After all we do for you, don't be selfish. We're only thinking about your well-being." And before you know it, you are defending your right to breathe as if it were some kind of selfish whim. Emotional manipulation is not always conscious. Sometimes it is just an inherited habit. Families learn which buttons work on you, and they press them without thinking. If the button is your fear of ending up alone, they threaten you with distance. If the button is your need to be a good person, they paint you as ungrateful. If the button is your shame, they expose you with little remarks in front of others, so you lower your head. And if you lower your head, the next step is simple. They move you. A boundary is not a fight. It is a clear phrase you repeat and stand by. It is saying the same thing without stepping into the swamp. I understand how you feel, but I will make this decision. I'm not going to accept that tone. I'm not going to have this conversation if you try to guilt me, and then you follow through. Because if you talk about boundaries but stay right there at the table swallowing the humiliation, the family learns that your boundaries are just decoration. This is where the most disguised kind of blackmail usually appears. They talk about safety in order to take away your freedom. They talk about concern in order to manage your life. And yes, there are cases where the risk is real, but even in those cases, one thing is agreeing to support, and another is being turned into a child. If you do not separate those two things, they will treat you like a child under the excuse of protection. In the middle of this chapter, look at yourself honestly. How many times do you accept a decision you do not want just to avoid conflict? How many times do you swallow something because you are afraid they will stop speaking to you? Because if your peace depends on other people not getting upset, that is not peace. It is fear wearing a neat haircut. And here comes Marcus Aurelius, who did not speak like a guru. He spoke like a man with enormous responsibilities and people all around him trying to pull him in every direction. In Meditations, he wrote something along the lines of, "You have power over your mind, not over what happens outside. Understand this and you will find strength." It is not a pretty quote to put in a frame. It is a reminder made of iron. The other person's emotions do not rule you unless you hand over control. Setting boundaries also means stopping the endless explanations. A long explanation is a door for people to negotiate with you. A short explanation is a wall. You do not need to convince them that your dignity is valid. You only need to behave like someone who has already decided that it is. And when they pressure you with tears, reproaches, or gentle threats, you come back to center. You breathe, you do not justify yourself, you hold the line. At first they're going to get angry. Sometimes they mock you. Sometimes they tell you, "You've changed." Good. Of course you've changed. You are no longer easy to handle. And that, even if it bothers them, is exactly what protects you. Because the nursing home often arrives when you are already too tired to keep arguing. With firm boundaries starting today, you reduce that exhaustion. And when you are not exhausted, you do not sign away your life just because you are worn down. 7. Put a legal and care plan in place under your rules. And this is where the adult who respects himself is separated from the adult people take care of by making decisions for him. Because as long as everything remains a conversation, a promise, and good intentions, your future hangs on other people's moods. But when there are documents, rules, and clear decisions, manipulation becomes harder. Not impossible, but much harder. People are afraid of this part because it sounds cold, as if talking about documents meant distrust. No. Talking about documents is maturity. It is understanding that love wears down under stress, that conflict appears under pressure, and that the worst time to improvise is when you are already sick or vulnerable. At that point, you are not the one deciding. Others decide for you, and they do it quickly. Your plan needs two things. Your wishes must be respected, and it must be practical. There is no point in writing down impossible wishes that no one can realistically carry out. It is also useless to say, "Let my children decide," because that is just handing them the wheel. The sensible thing is to put in writing who makes decisions if you cannot, under what conditions, with what limits, and with what obligation to report back. Whatever is not clearly defined invites chaos, and chaos always ends up leaning toward what is most convenient for others. This is where concrete things come in, with no fantasies. Properly drafted powers of attorney, advanced directives about medical treatment, a statement of wishes specifying what you accept and what you do not accept. A care plan that details how you want to live if your mobility declines. Whether you prefer help at home before any institution, whether there are middle ground options, whether there is a budget set aside, whether there is a trusted person overseeing things, and yes, also an organized will. So your estate does not become a war that later justifies decisions about you while you are still alive. In the middle of this point, it is worth asking yourself something uncomfortable. If tomorrow you could no longer speak clearly, who would speak for you with the same firmness you should be using today? Are you sure that person would choose your dignity over their own convenience? Because not everyone does. Not because they are monsters. Because convenience is seductive when the problem is heavy. And here a thought from Cicero fits well. A Roman who understood the value of foresight in turbulent times. He insisted that freedom is not doing whatever you want without order, but living under fair rules that protect you. Your legal plan is exactly that. A fair rule for your future, not to control your children, but to make sure no one controls you. Now something essential. This is not done in secret as if it were a betrayal. It is discussed clearly. It is presented for what it is, a way to reduce burden and avoid conflict. I've already put this in place so we don't have arguments if something happens. And if someone gets offended, let them be offended. Their offense does not cancel your right to put your life in order. Also define the nursing home scenario precisely. Some people say never, and then reality hits and everything falls apart. The intelligent move is to define conditions. If the time comes when care at home is no longer workable, then what kind of place, what requirements, what visits, what oversight, what finances, what supervision? Under your rules, not under we found a cheap one, that's it. This is the real closing point of everything that came before. Authority at home, money, body routine, support network, boundaries, all of that gives you strength in day-to-day life. But the legal plan gives you strength when you no longer have strength, and that is what many people forget. Dignity is not improvised in a hospital. It is built beforehand, calmly, with a cool head and firm resolve. If your children are pushing you toward a nursing home, the issue is not the building. It is control. It is about whether your old age will be a life directed by you or a life managed by others. And as long as you are still breathing, your dignity is not negotiable because you are not a package to be relocated. You are a person who decides. Bring it down to the concrete, starting today. Reclaim your place at home. Get your finances in order, take care of your body, structure your days, widen your network, and cut off guilt when they try to use it as a leash. Do not wait until you are weak to set rules, because when a person is tired, they will sign anything just to be left alone. If this video helped you, subscribe so we can keep training this mindset, and stay with me in this process. And I want to read you in the comments with the phrase, I am Stoic, and also tell me what country or city you are listening from, because you are not alone here. Here we are building a community of people who respect themselves. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. On screen, you'll see 2 recommended videos to keep strengthening your character and your autonomy. Pick one and keep going because your future is not something you improvise. Don't let anyone decide your life because you are too tired to fight. See you in the next video.